Our wonderful executive producer, Mr. Dave Tabb, is in the house today. God bless him. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, pal.
It's good to be here.
Hey, everyone. Connor here. We just want to take a moment to thank you so very much for tuning in and being a part of the Decon Chamber family. Your support keeps us going, and we couldn't do this without you.
And if you love what we do and want to help us even more, please consider joining us on Patreon. You'll get exclusive perks, behind-the-scenes content, and even opportunities to chat with us directly.
And don't forget to check out our awesome merch, because who doesn't want to rep their favorite podcast in style, baby?
Every little bit helps, I promise you. And we're really very, very grateful for all of you who make this show possible. So thanks for being there. And please enjoy this episode of the Decon Chamber.
The show has begun with Connor and Dom. It's the Decon Chamber.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Trekkies and Trekkers, welcome back to another episode of the Decon Chamber. As always, I am with my co-host, best friend in Los Angeles, Dominic Keating. We are doing Breaking the Ice, a watch party of Breaking the Ice. Now, this episode is interesting because, one, it was nominated for the 2002 Visual Effects Emmy.
Yes.
And it's written by Maria Jacques-Menton and her husband, André Jacques-Menton, and directed by Terry Wendell. As we've just said before we started, none of us have any real visual reference to who these people were, which it's a great episode, but nothing against them. I just don't remember.
It was early days for us, and our heads weren't necessarily in the writer's room particularly, or who maybe was directing the episode. It was, episodic directors coming in. He obviously cut his teeth with Voyager, I believe.
I looked at Terry. He'd done a lot of Star Trek.
Yeah. And this was a big episode to cover. There was a lot going on, and he did it very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think the main story that might have been Malcolm and Travis going to the comet got overshadowed rather neatly by T'Pol's missive.
Call for marriage.
Yeah, and your lovely relationship blossoming with her.
I didn't realize, to be quite honest with you, I didn't realize it happened that quickly.
No, I didn't either. It was and it was very sweet, actually.
Yeah, that scene at the end,
and natural. It didn't come out of left field horribly, and it wasn't like, oh, clunk, clink, right. Clunk. Anyway, we should let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. No. So
there's a lot going on in this episode. We start with I think it's the first time that we get to see Trip Tucker with his pecan pie.
Yes. Yeah.
And as we sit there in the dining hall,
the more Tuckerisms coming out somehow.
Oh yeah. We drop out of warp, and we hear the captain tell us that we are in the presence of an asteroid the size that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And we should all come take a look at that.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, T'Pol's already received this letter.
Yeah, and it comes from the Vulcan ship that has been deftly following us. The Timur, captained by Vanek, played lovely, beautiful performance by William Utay.
Yeah,
and the missive has come from that ship that she needs to return to Vulcan, and we don't know initially why, because it's encrypted. It didn't come through the normal channels as personal missives.
Is that the reason why they're following us?
No, a bit. I mean, it's maybe an excuse, but it's certainly they do have this message, and it is relayed through them. So maybe that's a bit of subterfuge, camouflage. That
it's a little confusing, because I wouldn't imagine they would send a Vulcan ship merely to follow us when they could have sent a message that she would have just
No,
responded.
agreed. I'm pretty sure that the idea was that they're using that as a smoke
A
screen
foil.
to be up our bums,
Yeah.
and uh, not received well by the captain. I love the fact that we're going to call this asteroid Archer. Asteroid Archer
Right.
was a rather nice touch. And so yeah, there's some very nice graphics there with that snowball hurtling through space. And of course, then Malcolm and Travis Mayweather are we're ordered to go visit the comet. It's got a heavy deposit of Elysium, if I think I'm
Elysium.
saying that
That's right.
right.
That's right. That's right.
Which even the Vulcans don't necessarily have a great understanding of, although they've poo-pooed, asteroids, and it's not something that their research particularly follows. And like, well, okay, mate.
You could somehow make an association, which is what happening right now with, how we're trying to find heavy metals that are good for electric batteries.
All right.
It's, things in Africa and
Yeah.
ways in which that we can find heavy metals. And this is an opportunity to at the very least acknowledge or identify an asteroid that could serve us.
Hmm.
And there's nothing on it. It's just bare. It's barren.
Yeah, it was amazing. I mean, that stage nine, they went all out. I couldn't believe it when I walked into that. And they'd done that in about 3 days, and it was just, the size of two tennis courts. It's covered in snow and little mountainous ranges, and
Yeah.
there was the shuttle pod deposited. I mean, it was amazing. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it was incredible. And just to rewind a little bit, we have this sort of through line throughout the episode where we're, in the first episode, in the first scene, I'm showing Jolene to Paul these illustrations from,
It's
some,
gotten the comic relief. We're
yeah.
doing a phone home like the space station to Ken Ken Mars. There's like
No,
a high school in Ireland.
that's different. That was that's later when I
Is that
have.
like, what are you showing her
I'm
initially?
showing her that it's like my aunt or some relation to me's fourth grade class has sent illustrations
Isn't
to.
it from the same school that in
It's not.
In
It's not.
Kerry? It's not.
In
That was
fact, I was
different.
looking at this closely. It's actually not.
Okay.
That's a whole separate part of this. But the initial one, which sets up which a very cute scene there at the end, or three-quarters of the way through. But initially, Billingsley, it's Phlox, right?
Mm.
Where they're looking at the illustrations and Paul is unwilling to address the curiosity of people with what we're doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
And she shuts it down very quickly. And she's got other things on her mind, obviously, because she's been married off, as it were.
Yes, an arranged marriage since birth, well, since childhood,
Yeah.
by her parents. Yeah.
So we get to a point where Archer's very excited about the idea of us exploring this asteroid. And he sends the two of you out, Malcolm and Mayweather,
Yeah.
to find out what we can find out. I
Some
think
serious time in that
so.
EV suit. Oh,
The idea was to essentially, what my take was, is that the possibility of mining that asteroid.
yeah. Yeah, and research and boring down and finding this elusive Elysium, and just doing some exploratory planetesimal asteroid work. And
This wasn't the first time you'd been in the EV suit, right?
no, we'd done a little stretch on the fight or flight, I think it is, when we go to that and we find them hanging all upside down, being mined for their human minerals by some.
I will say that I loved watching both you and Anthony come out of the shuttle pod, which audience, you have to remember coming out of the shuttle pod in an EV suit.
Gracefully.
Oh my God.
It's not an easy feat.
Man, I mean, how do you describe this? What's a comparison? It's like, oh,
It's like doing the limbo.
it's like being an elephant coming out of a small box.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy.
But the look on your faces when you come
Yeah.
out, all just like, "Ma?"
No. I noticed that when we set the explosives after the hilarity of the snowman scene and Archer saying, "We're being observed, people. Stop
Yeah.
acting like children." It was rather good, but I thought that was rather nice with the
Yeah, I did too.
blowtorch making the eyes and sticking it in his nose. That was rather cute.
I
But I just noticed that then we crouched down behind, one of the sort of said snowy outcrops of the asteroid, and the ease with which I just went down on all fours with that heavy 18-pound helmet, 38-pound backpack. And I was like, I don't think I could do that now. My knees would just go.
even the point when you came out, and I saw your breath because that was a real thing we had to deal with.
Yeah.
I saw your breath, like your first breath onto the visor. And I thought to myself, how many times did they have to do this damn thing to make sure that this didn't look? And I thought to myself, the hair team must have been like,
Yeah.
what's going on?
I know. Yeah, it was a thing. And look, God bless you. You've said to me on numerous occasions, well, Anthony's got bigger batteries than you. And he did. I mean, and we would be mic'd up. So we could actually exchange, in real time through a microphone to each other through the headsets. And of course, sound would never turn it off. And in between takes, Anthony would be bopping around that set, bopping around the studio from craft service to hair and makeup, just chat, 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 chat. And I'd be sort of, I'd find a dark corner and somewhere where I could deposit the backpack on an apple box and then sit comfortably and hopefully quietly, only to listen to him. And at one point, I did cry out in the dark, "Shut
Do you think that had we reached a point where, and it was a very simple solution, which was to take two apple boxes.
Yes.
And that means about
That was it.
about a 16 by 12, just
They basically built a seat
box.
where you could rest
And
the
then-
backpack.
and
Yeah.
then add the other one on top of that,
Yeah.
where we get some relief.
Because the getting it on and off was even more arduous.
Right. Had that been
Remember, they used that was the initial, plan was after each take, as it were, they'd rush around you and suddenly the helmet would be off, the backpack would be off, and it'd be great. But putting it all back on again was just, oh my God.
taking that helmet off was arduous. It was
Arduous.
easy.
Yeah.
But had we gotten to a point where we did have those apple boxes yet? I don't know that we did.
No, not at this point. It was getting close. Everything changed in season 2 when Scott and I did Minefield, and he spent some serious time in that suit and he put his back out.
Well, so we're in season 1, episode 8. So
Yeah,
no,
season 1, episode 2, it was at Minefield, and he suddenly that Mark the trainer came by, and all of a sudden, a lot of attention was paid to redesigning ergonomically those suits.
Right.
And God bless Joe. Joe could do 20 minutes, not even. I mean, she could do 12 minutes and then have to take it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, it was a tough thing. And but as you say, Anthony got bigger batteries than me. And and he's 10 years younger than me. So,
I also think that there's something interesting in that the two of you make a snowman that we then find out you add Vulcaneers to a little bit later.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
it was almost like a, middle finger to the Vulcans.
To
That,
Vanek watching because we're
that there's,
being watched.
yeah, there's no way that you wouldn't have known that you're being watched.
Yeah. No, we're alerted to it by the captain. Like,
Yeah,
quit
right,
messing around down there. We are being observed.
right.
Um, he's so terse, isn't he, Vanek? And
He's
that dinner party scene when he comes aboard, and he's already eaten.
yeah, yeah.
I love that.
Tell that both the captain and Trip, what they're eating, they don't want to eat.
No, no, no.
Yeah.
Trip is still quite so,
He is, but I will say that, this was actually earlier than I thought it was for his character to have um less a sense of like, going out there and kicking ass and being sensitive. And,
Mm.
he has that scene with Archer where he's kind of obligated to, based on his conversation with Hoshi in engineering, he has to read this letter.
Yeah, I mean, because
And and
it's
and and recognizes in the reading of the letter that like, oh,
damn.
not what I wanted to read.
Oh,
And goes to the captain and really has a struggle with what is the right thing to do. And I remember later in our series that I had gone to them and said, look, Trip has to get his foot caught in his mouth some point, because otherwise he just seems like this sort of like bull in a china shop. And this was unexpected
mm,
to me in seeing this, that he's really struggling with the idea of someone's private
mm.
um, letter.
Yeah, and his natural gentlemanliness it is evident. It's not like he has to be taught that this is not something you should do.
Right.
He's it's not a come to Jesus moment. It's
No, it's a struggle about what's the right thing.
yeah, I know I've overstepped unwittingly, or rather, I've been forced to overstep the mark, and God knows I wished I didn't have to.
Yeah,
And pleased with her. Why did you not have this sent through normal channels as a personal piece?
right,
And her excuse was, well, it would have taken too long or something. But
right.
it's a very clever device to then get you and to pull.
Yeah,
Uh,
he enters into her chambers for the very first time, and
yeah.
and she says to him, and I don't think it was anything expected by Trip that he was the one, and for her reasoning, which was you're the only one who knows.
Mm,
I mean, there may be deeper elements to that, but you're the only one who knows about this, so I need to talk to you about this.
mhm.
And I don't. I think that Trip developed his emotional life as we went along,
Mm, mm.
and I think that this is the first example where we get to see him struggle with um, morals.
Yeah, yeah. And look, and we had an actor that could encompass that quite handsomely. So, you know,
Yeah.
it wasn't a stretch for you to, be the good guy. And
Right, and I think that again, we look back on these things. I don't remember the writers. I don't remember the director, but I remember
it
the
wouldn't
episode.
have done particularly in these early days. We got more involved as this episodes went by. But yeah, I don't, to
Yeah. In the
be honest, I don't
meantime,
remember Terry at all.
no, in the meantime, what, season one, I would say season one entirely. I'll say for myself, I was like, well, I got a three line byline for what my character was. Will help me develop this.
Mm,
And we got that opportunity to do that throughout that season. But I mean, it's hard to write a Bible for yourself when you only know that you're a good old Southern boy, good at engines.
right. Speaking of which, yeah. So then we get to that lovely comic scene, which it goes on longer than you'd imagine, when we're
I
doing the phone home to the Kenmore High School, Kerry in Ireland, and being asked the usual space questions about, what do you do when you poop?
my memory of this, and it's wrong, obviously, was that this was like well into season 3.
Wow.
Had no idea that it was this soon.
Yeah.
And I thought that scene was handled so well. I
It
do. I
was
do.
ever so slightly pushed by Scott's delivery. I mean, but it was it had the same tonality and uh, um, the ring about it as you would get on a space station interview in present day, certainly in
Right.
that present day.
Talking to a third or fourth grade class.
Yeah, and trying to infuse our excitement about being up there and doing what we were doing, and instill the wonder of what we were doing to young children there on planet Earth who might follow in
Little,
footsteps.
yeah. A little
Yeah.
side note to that was the first, that was the very first scene. No, sorry. The first one was an unexpected in Phlox's office. But this is one of the very first times where I went from a poop question, sir, having no idea what I was supposed to say. No clue. No idea. And we've got, and this is embarrassing for me to say this because we've got Linda, John, Scott. We're all sitting there, we're answering these questions, and I just, after it got from poop question to sort of describe what all of that meant,
Mm.
that was not a night that I was good on.
Oh, well, I don't know. I thought you did it well. And
Well, I mean, you see how it's shot, but like, we went to like, take to the point where I remember saying to Jan, it was pretty close, right?
she was
Jan was
just
our
doing it.
script supervisor, and I remember saying to Jan, I was like,
Right.
Jan,
Oh, I guess what you're saying now. You just weren't actually DLP, as
I
they
was
say.
accurate in my delivery.
Right.
It's like, come
Well, it was
on.
all about the resequencing and
Yes.
and turning it into molecules that could then be, reused. And one one of the objects was boots.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You're wearing boots.
It was late at night. It was late at night. And I do,
Was it a late one? Was it?
yeah, this is one of those times when I went back to my trailer and did a DiCaprio from Once Upon a
Trash
Time in
that
Hollywood. I
trailer.
was just like, damn,
You're better than this.
better than this. How could you not? You know this. You know
Uh, you knew it in the bath
if it
last
weren't for the
night.
seventh whiskey sour, you'd
Yeah.
be fine.
That's such a brilliant scene, isn't it? It
So good.
really is. I so related to his character in that film.
I think every actor
Yeah,
had a moment that he does so well in that
yeah,
film.
yeah. The bit where even when the girl tells him you're the greatest actor I've ever worked with, and he just about tears up because
Yeah.
the accolade from a 7-year-old is just everything he needed to hear. It is
Exactly.
it's pathetic and sad,
Right.
but
Yeah,
true.
and she even knows his lines at that point.
Yes. Um, what else? So yeah, the explosion that of course, well, so then we've done the explosion and it knocks the asteroid off its uh
Axis.
axis, and now we're facing, imminent
Dawn.
heating from the star that we're going to suddenly turn into, and the ice is going to melt, and we got to get out of there. And Malcolm's not at all perturbed
Clearly
until
not.
until the until the Energizer
Well,
Bunny
Mayweather,
falls down the well.
right.
Yeah. And suddenly now we're fighting the clock, and nothing like a good ticking clock in an episode.
And nothing like banging around in a shuttle pod.
Yeah.
There was It looks so much larger on television.
Yeah, and it wasn't. It was, I mean, how big is it? It's about twice, it's about two broom cupboards,
I'd say it's probably 6 feet wide tops and 8 feet deep.
maybe 7 and 12 feet deep, I would say.
It's not big and it's full of stuff.
And it's full of stuff, and it's very low ceilinged, and it's all metal barred.
Yeah.
And when we
And
do,
you're in an EV suit.
and you're wearing an EV suit, which actually, if you've got the head on, that's not a bad thing, because if you do bang the head, it just jars the neck rather than actually. But when we did Shuttle Pod 1, man, I must have banged my head a
Oh,
dozen times.
constantly.
My scalp was just like, bumped up. Um,
I wonder in terms of, so it's not quite clear in watching the episode. We're still in a bit of a wandering dance with the Vulcans.
yeah, very much so.
And us needing their help in that way, again, breaking the ice.
Yes.
But I don't feel like we actually did. They
Well,
helped us.
I guess it's that final moment when T'Pol suggests to a very recalcitrant, unrecalcitrant Jonathan Archer that we might employ Vanek's assistance and help with the tractor beam. That because we've missed with
We don't have the technology. We don't have.
we don't have the tractor beam, and we're struggling with a grappler, which only one deployed. And as we're trying to pull the shuttle pod out, another seismic shift happens on the asteroid, and we drop another 9 meters. And any minute now, it's going to turn away from the star, and it's all going to freeze over, and we're screwed.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a rather poignant moment where Archer is forced to swallow his pride. Human pride is always human ego, and pride is usually the the end of any advancement in any endeavor. When people dig their heels in, and
Yeah, maybe. I think that again, we're looking at our first season, and this episode was a surprise to me. I don't know what we're going to see going forward, but it was an opportunity for us to have a relationship with the Vulcans, and man, they don't want to help us, but they're willing to not have us die.
no, they don't make it easy, and
No.
they certainly want to keep us under their thumb.
Yeah.
And much as we found out in the last episode, they're not beyond a bit of duplicity. They were hiding a massive.
Dominic, by the time our show comes on, we believe they are duplicitous to an end.
Yeah, that they've been lying to us for 50 years about and keeping us landlocked, as it were, because they didn't think we were ready for it. It's like a sort of
It's interesting also that in that conversation in the dining hall or in the captain's mess, that we don't get any notion about how Vulcans feel about what they're doing. We know what we're doing. They seem to be just sort of hovering around.
And monitoring. Or spying on us. That's a real slap in the face from the captain.
Because the previous episode, Pajem, they clearly have something else going on that we didn't know about, and they've got so much more going on. In fact, I'm going to rewind this for myself for a second. So, in Shadows of Pajem, we get to see that they've got a whole operation about monitoring everything.
Well, certainly back to Andoria. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we leave that episode and come into this one where they also want to give us nothing. And it's not until their own Vulcan requests that they assist us.
Mm.
There's no real
Well, brokers a relationship where we would accept their assistance. I think Vanek offers the assistance in a very what's the word, over fatherly and rather disparaging way.
judging way.
Yeah, yeah, and it's to Paul that brokers the deal between Archer's resistance because of ego and vanity and pride, and says no, you use the tractor beam. That's what's going to save the day. And
We don't have one.
we don't have the technology.
Right.
You ask about that, don't you? And he says that's proprietary. Sod off. And so yeah, it's a step forward that
Yeah.
because she says that they'll be expecting you to say no, and we'll figure this out on our own, even if it's to our own detriment.
Right.
And
Yeah. And that's also some of those scenes, that scene in particular, my memory of my own character and his snarkiness lasted much longer than I thought it was going to.
right.
Remember it being so, there are so many moments where, and this is the first episode, I think, where he sort of has, as opposed to a snarky moment, a reaction of like when T'Pol walks away at the end of the episode and he has this grin on his face. That grin to me meant that, that Trip got something.
Mm.
Prior to this, as we all know, he's kind of a
A little bit. I mean,
Yeah.
he kind of is. He's a good old boy, and yeah, especially with 25 years, history, as it were, or looking back, hindsight. Yeah, I mean, at the time, it was considered good old American boy,
Well,
attitudes.
yeah, we've talked about this. We were on, for you all, we were on the seventh rule yesterday talking with Sirach and Ryan. And, um, the wonder of being able to do this, of going back and looking at these episodes, is really impactful to me. And I find myself looking at my performance in a critical way, as opposed to being like, hey, Connor's on TV.
No, right.
You know what
Agreed.
I mean?
Yeah, agreed. I
And,
quite agree.
yeah,
Yeah.
and to be able to have the
Enough
opportunity,
distance.
yeah, and to have the opportunity and to be able to do this with all of you, to express my own sense of what I thought happened
Hmm.
and was happening versus how I see it now, 20 some years later. I find fascinating. I find
And it is, and it's fascinating to see it with the hindsight lens in place too. We were talking about that yesterday, that a lot of our show must be seen through the lens of 9/11, which oddly enough, this episode came directly at that moment.
Yeah.
I looked through the shooting schedule. Did 9/11 happen on a Sunday? Because I looked at the shooting schedule and
No, it was not a Sunday. We were meant to work because I was meant to go to work.
yeah, so I'm
It
confused by
wasn't a
that because it
Sunday.
says
Maybe a Monday. I don't
shot
recall.
the 8th and we shot the 7th and the 8th. I don't know. It says we went back to work on
No,
Monday
I remember seeing.
the 10th.
I remember waking up, getting a call from a friend and saying, "Turn the TV on."
Yeah. And it
Turn the
was 6 in
TV
the
on
morning here.
to see the plane go into Tower 2.
Yeah. Saw that one live, saw the smoking of Tower 1, did not see the plane,
Didn't see it
but
either, but
saw
saw
the
that.
second plane actually enter. Yeah.
Yeah, and then getting a call from Mary
Yeah.
saying, "You're not going to
You're not
work."
coming to work today.
But so it was a work day.
So it was a work day, but this episode was the episode that it happened on. And that's quite
Wow.
something to take into consideration.
And at that time, if anybody in our audience remembers who were alive, um, it was like America said to everybody else, nope, we're going to kick your ass.
Yeah. It was a knee-jerk
And
reaction, and we all felt it.
yeah,
There was some, I think people of cooler minds and more liberal leanings definitely were already saying, let's take a step here, take a moment. But
right.
I know my gut reaction was, you know what? You've overstepped the mark, guys. Now we're going to kill you. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
no. And it was a guttural.
We are both liberal in our politics.
We are. Yeah.
Uh, but at that moment, man, it was like,
It
well,
played into yeah,
you stepped over the line.
And it plays into a natural human emotion, which is, okay, we're all done talking now,
Exactly.
and you've poked this big bed, way too many times, and now this time, yeah, it was,
It's like, I'm going to put hands on you now.
yeah, I know, which is, as we know, is not generally the best.
The fascinating thing about our show is that it lived within that environment.
It did, and it
And
was,
how we all felt about that and how we all responded to that. And that I'm talking about our cast. I'm talking about um, our particular world.
mm,
We had a sense of something that you can't do that.
no. I
You
know.
can't do
I
that.
was gutted too. I thought it might be the cancellation of our show, and you know, are we ever going to do? Is this what's going to happen now? I mean, there were some self-interested thoughts went
Yeah.
through my mind. I mean,
No, I mean, I've told this story before. I've told it on our show that, I at that point when this all went down, and this might be this episode where I thought to myself, "Phew, dude, you're an actor. Do something real."
mm,
And it wasn't until a conversation with my father on the phone, literally in my trailer, where I was struggling about everything we're all struggling with, and I shared that with him, and I was like, I think what I'm doing is ridiculous. This is stupid. I mean, why am I even here? I mean, I should be doing something else. And he disagreed with me completely
mm.
and said, what you're doing now is giving somebody a Thursday or a Wednesday or whatever the
Yeah,
hell we're on, and giving them some kind of respite, some
it was
sort of.
very wise of him,
It was.
to because it's yes, as you say, after a certain age as an actor, you kind of go, it's not really a proper man's job, is it?
Right.
putting on a putting on an accent and a limp.
Right, exactly.
But actually, yeah, I mean, if you do give someone respite from some dreadful eventuality in their life and incident, and we know we've come across that at the conventions where people have just come up and said, "Look, you helped me through one of the worst 3 months of my life," and some
The
of them,
wonder of our job.
yeah,
It's the wonder of our job in
it
my
really is, and
that people walk up and say, I'm this because of your character.
yeah.
I
That's
got through this because of your
because
character.
of your show. Yeah.
Because of
It
your
gave me an
show.
hour off from the worst. And we've heard some just dreadful, life can be very, very, very cruel and very difficult.
Yeah,
And
I hold
life
that very
events.
close to my breast that if I did one thing in my work, it was having an influence in a positive way for people that I've met.
Yeah. And as was discussed yesterday on the Lappies with the Seventh Rule guys, being a part of this franchise, it's got longevity, and our legacy will be remembered.
Yeah.
And God bless this show that we've created, and the interviews we've done with two iterations of it now will go down in the annals of Star Trek historical posterity. And I hope that future fandoms, generations of them, have this as a library that they can go back and research if they
Agreed.
choose to go back and encompass the whole phenomenon of this extraordinary TV franchise. And
And having done
yeah.
the show, uh, and having spoken to people about what we've done on the show matters a great deal to me. And doing this show with you matters a great deal to me because
Yeah,
we're doing something, I don't want to call it important, but we're doing something of value.
it is a value. I quite agree. Yeah, no, and doing it with a best friend,
Yeah,
and so and the love is there, mate. It really
likewise.
is. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We're not going to
We
die
missed
together.
it.
But we're going to die loving each other.
One way or damn it, one way or another. I'm gonna love you. You may not like it.
It's like a Cassavetes 70s movie.
Yeah. The ending of the pecan pie is rather cute, isn't it? When she's in her quarters.
It
It says a bit, I think.
I felt as though that was a little gilding the lily.
Did you? Oh, I didn't mind it.
I don't think that we quite earned the pecan pie in her room at that point.
Right. Okay. All right.
But we did eventually.
Yeah, we did. I mean, and the fact that she knew she could trust you now with deep personal secrets, that you were not going to go blagging that around the ship. And yeah, I didn't mind it. I thought it was.
I mean, I did find it romantic, definitely. But then, of course, we find ourselves moving forward. It looks as though she's going to be with the captain.
Mm, yeah.
So that dynamic was interesting. I think that what it did was it set the template for these very different people to potentially connect.
Yeah. Yeah. No, definitely. And I look forward to seeing the next episode and see how that develops.
Yeah.
And I think, is it a Mike Sussman episode coming up next?
Yeah, we're going to have him on with us.
And Mike's been following our podcast, our chat.
Thank you, Mike.
He's loving it. Thank you, Mike. And he reached out and said he'd like to come on, and we said yes. Who are you again?
I got to tell you, I love the research we do and the talking to people. There's something really interesting to me that really, I mean, hits my heart about the two of us talking about these episodes that we've worked on together all this time, so long ago, and revisiting them and talking about them
Passionately,
as we are now,
Yeah.
and passionately, and as we are now.
Yeah. And with the ability of the time and the maturity to look back and critique our former performances.
We've got no problem with that. We're good at that. I mean,
Yeah. So I have to say, I think Anthony and I is acting in that spacesuit. Even the voice was not easy. And the lighting to look good in that helmet was not easy.
No.
And I have to say, I looked at this episode and went, you know what? I pulled that off.
Yeah.
I mean, God knows, Dustin Hoffman, bless his heart, in that what was that precursor to the pandemic movie that he did with Kate Winslet? It's gonna kill me. Virus. I mean, that's with a lot of money thrown at that movie, and he has a couple of dodgy looks in that helmet, in the virus suit, and so yeah, to pull off a helmet like that, and sound good in it, I was like, yeah, thumbs up to that.
Did you live the whole thing?
I'm not entirely sure. We might well have done. I do remember they had the whole speaky thing.
Yeah.
It was all wired up to sound department. So there's a good chance that the sound on the day was the sound they used. Yeah. That was the whole point of
the
it.
snowman.
Yeah.
What
Ah,
happened to the snowman?
what happens to I have him in my backyard. I stole him. Uh,
Battery in his nose.
God bless those set builders and everything, man. I mean,
Oh,
just
they're extraordinary.
amazing. Planet Nine, Planet Hell,
Planet
Stage
Hell.
Nine. They really went all out. And it was so much fun to walk into a landscape like that. I mean, now, you know, we know that they create these AI landscapes that they're just going to get better and better at it. I was watching something on 60 Minutes the other day about the guy in NVIDIA,
Yeah.
and what they're doing now. I mean,
Well, we had Frakes on. He was talking about this, what was it like? It's 60 or 90 screens
yeah,
that you get to see the environment that you're in.
yeah,
In the
you're
meantime,
literally
what
acting
we
in
were
the
doing,
environment.
looking
Yeah,
at a tennis ball attached to a
yeah.
stick.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, and that ours were all our scenes were practical or a tennis ball on a stick.
Yeah.
And now they're working in extraordinary, visual
You're
landscape.
working in the luxury of the environment of what you're supposed to see.
Mm, mm. Must be a
You
lot of
know?
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, it's a great episode and nice to talk to you about it, mate.
Yeah.
And
Likewise.
all
All
right.
right. I hope you enjoyed this.
Yes.
I really enjoyed watching this episode. It was one of the ones that I thought actually was further on to our canon, but it was before the first half of our first season was over.
Yeah, and something of a filler, but it wasn't. It was actually, more than a
Yeah,
filler.
yeah,
And as I said earlier, I think, the main storyline got overshadowed and superseded by the what was probably going to be the B storyline, which was to Paul and this secret message. And
right.
all of a sudden, that became really the thrust of the episode, which, yeah, not a bad thing. So,
Yeah. All right, Shell. Thanks so much
Nanu,
for
Nanu.